Vincent Holloway had endured exactly 11 blind dates in the past 6 months. Each one had followed the same script. The woman would research him beforehand, know his net worth down to the last million, and spend the evening asking about his vacation homes and investment properties. At 43, Vincent had built Holloway Industries from the ground up. What started as a small tech startup in his garage had become a software empire. But success had cost him his marriage, most of his friendships, and apparently his ability to meet someone who cared about him rather than his bank account. This would be the last one. After tonight, he was done with blind dates. Vincent adjusted his charcoal blazer and checked his watch. The woman was already 10 minutes late. He'd give her 5 more, then leave. He had better things to do than sit alone in an upscale bar being stood up. Then she walked in. She wasn't what he expected. Most of the women his assistant set him up with wore designer clothes and expensive jewelry, their appearance carefully calculated to impress. This woman wore a simple gray dress with a cream cardigan. Her blonde hair fell naturally past her shoulders. She looked nervous, scanning the room until her eyes found his. Something in her expression made him pause. Recognition, maybe, or relief. She approached his table with purpose, her hands gesturing as if she was already mid-conversation with herself. "You're Vincent Holloway," she said. "Not a question, a statement. Guilty," he replied, standing. "And you must be Grace." "Grace Winters," she confirmed, sitting down across from him. She seemed flustered, her words coming quickly. "I'm sorry I'm late. There was an accident on the highway, traffic was backed up for miles, and I kept thinking I should text, but I was driving and that seemed irresponsible, so I just kept going and hoping you wouldn't leave." Vincent found himself smiling despite his earlier resolution to end the evening quickly. "I was about to leave, honestly. But I'm glad I waited." Grace took a breath, seeming to center herself. "Before we go any further, I need to tell you something." Here it comes, Vincent thought. She was going to ask about his company, his houses, his connections. "You once helped my daughter," Grace said quietly. Vincent froze. "I'm sorry?" "7 years ago," Grace continued, her voice steadying. "You were at Mercy General Hospital, late at night. Do you remember?" Vincent's mind raced backward. 7 years ago, he had been at Mercy General. His mother had been dying. He'd spent 3 weeks practically living in that hospital, watching her fade. "I was there for my mother," he said slowly. "I know," Grace said. "I saw you there many nights, always in the waiting area outside ICU. You looked exhausted. Grief does that to people." Vincent's throat tightened. He rarely talked about his mother's death. The memory was still too raw. "My daughter Emma was 8 years old," Grace said. "She had been diagnosed with leukemia 6 months earlier. We were in the pediatric oncology ward. She was having a hard night. The treatment was making her so sick, and I couldn't console her. I stepped out to get coffee, just for 5 minutes, and when I came back she was gone." Vincent remembered now. The memory surfaced sharp and clear. A little girl in the hallway, bald from chemotherapy, wearing a hospital gown and dragging a 4-pole. She had been crying, lost and scared. "I found her by the vending machines," Vincent said quietly. Grace nodded, tears filling her eyes. "You sat down on the floor with her. You didn't try to take her back to her room or call for nurses. You just sat with her." The memory crystallized. The little girl had been terrified, not just of being lost, but of everything. The treatments, the pain, the uncertainty. Vincent had seen that same fear in his mother's eyes. So he'd sat down on the cold hospital floor and asked the girl her name. "Emma," Grace said. "She told you her name was Emma, and she was scared of needles. You told her you were scared of hospitals, that they smelled weird and the lights were too bright and everything felt cold." She laughed, Vincent remembered. She said I was being silly, that grown-ups weren't supposed to be scared. "And you told her that being brave didn't mean not being scared," Grace said, her voice breaking. "It meant being scared and doing the hard thing anyway. You told her that her mother was probably very scared too, but she was being brave for Emma, and maybe Emma could be brave for her mother." Vincent's eyes stung. He remembered the little girl's face clearing, the way she'd straightened up. "You walked her back to her room," Grace continued. You held the four-pole for her. When we got back, I was frantic, searching everywhere. And there you were, this businessman in an expensive suit, helping my daughter back into bed. You told me she was very brave, that I should be proud. I remember you, Vincent said. You were crying. You hugged Emma so tight. I never got to thank you properly, Grace said. You left before I could. I asked the nurses who you were, but no one knew, just a man visiting someone in ICU. I searched for you for months afterward, but I didn't have a name, just a face I couldn't forget. Your daughter, Vincent said urgently. Is she? She's 15 now, Grace said, smiling through tears. Healthy. In remission for 6 years. She plays soccer and argues with me about her curfew and dreams of being a veterinarian. She's alive, Vincent, and she's wonderful. Relief flooded through him. That's incredible. That night changed something for her, Grace explained. She stopped fighting the treatments. She started talking about being brave instead of being scared. Your words stayed with her. They stayed with both of us. Vincent didn't know what to say. He'd spent 7 years thinking the time in his life had been nothing but darkness and loss. His mother had died 2 days after that encounter. He'd left the hospital and never looked back, trying to forget. When my friend said she wanted to set me up with Vincent Holloway, I didn't make the connection at first, Grace said. But then I saw your photo and I knew. I knew it was you. The man who sat on a hospital floor with my terrified daughter and gave her courage. I didn't do anything special, Vincent said. I just talked to her. You saw her, Grace corrected gently. Not as a sick child, not as someone to pity, but as a person who was scared and needed someone to be real with her. That's everything. The bartender appeared, asking for their order. Vincent ordered wine for both of them, something expensive he couldn't taste. His mind was spinning. I came tonight to thank you, Grace said once they were alone again. I've been looking for you for 7 years. And here you are, on a blind date my friend arranged. The universe has a strange sense of timing. Is that the only reason you came? Vincent asked. To say thank you? Grace met his eyes directly. No, I also came because I'm tired of being alone. Because my friend said you were a good man who'd had his heart broken too many times. Because I thought maybe we could both use someone who understands loss and second chances. Vincent felt something shift in his chest. For the first time in months, maybe years, he felt seen. Not as Vincent Holloway, CEO, not as the man with the portfolio and the properties, but as the person who had sat on a hospital floor with a scared little girl because he understood what it meant to be afraid. Tell me about Emma, he said. Grace's face lit up. She pulled out her phone, showing him pictures. A teenage girl with long blonde hair, smiling in a soccer uniform. Emma at her 8th grade graduation. Emma with a puppy she'd rescued. She looks like you, Vincent said. She has her father's stubbornness, Grace replied. He passed away when she was 3. Car accident. It's been just the 2 of us. Ever since. That must have been hard. It was, Grace admitted, especially when she got sick. There were nights I didn't think either of us would make it through. But we did. We're survivors, Emma and me. They talked for hours, not about money or status or any of the superficial things that had dominated Vincent's previous dates. They talked about loss and resilience, about what it meant to keep going when everything felt impossible, about finding joy in small moments. Grace told him about her work as a librarian, how she loved connecting people with books that would change their lives. Vincent told her about his mother, how losing her had nearly broken him, how he'd buried himself in work to avoid feeling anything. You're allowed to grieve, Grace said softly. Success doesn't erase pain. I know, Vincent said, but it's easier to stay busy than to sit with the emptiness. For a while, Grace agreed, but eventually you have to face it. Trust me, I learned that the hard way. When the bar began closing, Vincent realized he didn't want the evening to end. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Can I see you again? He asked as they stood to leave. Grace smiled. I'd like that. And maybe, Vincent added carefully, I could meet Emma, if that's appropriate. Grace's eyes widened. You want to meet her? I'd like to see how that brave little girl turned out, Vincent said. If that's okay with you, she's going to be thrilled, Grace said. She still talks about the nice man from the hospital. She'll be amazed to know I found you. They saw each other the following weekend, and the one after. Vincent met Emma at a casual lunch, and the teenager looked at him with wide eyes. "You're him," she said. "The man who said being brave was being scared and doing it anyway." "I am," Vincent confirmed. "That's been my motto ever since," Emma said. "When I'm scared of a test or a game or trying something new, I remember what you said." "It helps." Vincent felt tears prick his eyes. His darkest time had created something good. His pain had somehow helped this girl survive hers. 6 months later, Vincent proposed to Grace, not in a fancy restaurant or exotic location, but in the library where she worked, surrounded by books and quiet and the smell of paper and possibilities. "7 years ago, I was broken," Vincent said. "I thought my life would never have meaning again, but you showed me that kindness echoes, that the smallest actions can save lives, that sometimes we help people without ever knowing how much it matters." "You saved my daughter," Grace said. "You saved me," Vincent replied. At their wedding, Emma gave a speech. She talked about the night she got lost in the hospital, how scared she'd been, how a stranger had sat with her and changed everything. "Vincent taught me that brave people are just scared people who keep going," Emma said. He was grieving his mother, sitting in that hospital night after night, but he still had enough kindness left to help a lost little girl. "That's the kind of man he is, and I'm so glad he's going to be my family." The CEO in the charcoal blazer and the librarian in the gray dress found something neither expected on that final blind date. Not gratitude alone, not obligation, but recognition of two people who had survived the worst and were ready to build something beautiful from the ashes. Sometimes the kindness we offer in our darkest moments comes back to us in unexpected ways. Sometimes the person we help becomes the person who saves us in return. And sometimes a blind date is really a reunion, 7 years in the making. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Comment below about a time when a small act of kindness had a lasting impact. We never know how our compassion will ripple through someone's life, returning to us when we need it most.